Hello and welcome to Musings of a MasterNi. I'm Meenal Desai and here I share a medley of my unique experiences shaped by students, parents, teachers and life in general. And today we have the second episode of Parent Pathshala. Parent Pathshala is essentially a series of heartwarming talks that we have for parents. And today, as my guest, I have someone very interesting. She's Radhika Rai. She's a mindfulness consultant, one of the first in India, and one of the first to be trained in the mindfulness school in California. She's a computer engineer and who chose mindfulness over computers and all that. And she's a mother of two. And it'll be interesting to talk about what it really means. The word is like all fancy nowadays, but what it really means. How do we understand it and how do we use it as parents? So let's begin with that. So yeah, could you tell us a little bit about your childhood? So what was it? What were you as a child and what did it look like? Where did you grow up?
So I was born in a city called Bokaro Steel City. It's a small city in Jharkhand. My father was a doctor, my mother a housewife, and I was the second daughter of in fact the third daughter of the family. So very warmly welcomed, but can say was not planned. To have third child as a daughter was not definitely planned. My house was full of, so to say, drama because it was a mix of extreme love, extreme pampering, at the same time a lot of strictness. Kind of military rule where the commander-in-chief was my mother and her say was final. So there was a lot of mixed emotions that we grew up with. Strictness sometimes doesn't go really well with the upbringing because when it crosses certain lines, it becomes difficult as a child to understand the perspective of the parent. Yes.
So if you had to describe your childhood in one word, it would be?
A roller coaster drive.
A roller coaster. Okay, interesting. So tell me about how did you start a family? When did you choose to do that? How did you choose to do that, or was that something like that?
It's a marriage that we chose, so it's a love marriage. We got married very early, which was 22 and a half, 23, and we chose to get married just after engineering. After completing that first stage of education, I was always inclined towards doing something more. So I got this opportunity after marriage to do my MBA. In-laws were supportive. I could do that for a good long 3 years, but by the end of 3 years the pressure was building up, and it was a family from I belong to Bihar and husband belongs to UP, so the cultural roots are pretty orthodox in that sense, where early marriage and early
and within 3 years where
that's the
issue.
maximum time that they can allot you both. So it was more or less a planned thing, yes.
Okay. And you have two kids. How old are they?
They are 10 and 7.
Okay. So how do you and your partner, how do you share roles? You live with the grandparents?
No, we live in a nuclear family. So we chose to live separately in the last 12 years, just after my daughter was born. So there was time where we thought that it is good and important for us to grow as individuals. Only when we live separately, we understand the intricacies of how to live like a family. And that came with challenges, definitely. So Rahul into his own family business that required a hell lot of time and energy and everything, you can say. But as a person, he's a very, very affectionate person towards children. All his life he has been like that to his younger siblings.
So would there be things that you have clearly delineated, like these are my roles, these are your roles?
Never. It was like a teamwork. So something that I learned late, I realized late that this is how the family must run, but it was a very beautiful learning that he is playing his role and I am playing mine, and we together as a unit are a family. It is not that he has to do the household chores also and I have to run the business or I have to earn the money also. He is doing his part and I am doing mine, and whenever there is a need, he has never really stepped back. In fact, he is the one who comes home. Sundays are his days. Like children hardly look up to me. So vacations are his days where he is responsible for the minutest things to take care.
So you practice mindfulness, and that's how we met and all that. So what is mindfulness like, and what does mindfulness look like for a parent? Because believe me, parents are like harrowed. Mindfulness is like the last thing that probably they have in mind.
That's how it is for every parent, including me. Because
for everyone. Okay?
Yes, it is for everyone. Parenting is parenting and mindfulness is mindfulness. Mindful parenting definitely helps. Okay. What is mindfulness first? It is being present in this moment. So you have to be aware, you have to be conscious while you are living. Each day, each moment. Everything that you think, you say, you do it mindfully. So it is.
But don't we generally do it mindfully? Like just wondering that we're living, right? We are conscious. We are sentient beings.
We are living. We are sentient beings, but we are not conscious. The distractions that we have today, Meenal. For example, this one thing. How many times do you check?
Pretty much.
As per science, at least 72 times a day.
Yeah, minimum.
Minimum 72 times, 48 to 72. And a normal human being, for that matter, is using 4 to 5 hours of mobile in one day, which is around 28 hours in a week, which is much more than a part-time job. The distraction is so much that we are doing 10 things at one time. We are thinking about 10 different things, and now we are so much addicted that if we do not get that input, our dopamines will fall down so much that we will feel uncomfortable. We will feel restless.
So tell me, is it because of the advent of technology that mindfulness is required, or has mindfulness been important?
See, mindfulness has always been there. So mindfulness is like gravity. Gravity was never, discovered. It was always there. It was
discovered, never invented.
Never invented. Similarly, mindfulness has always been there from the times before monks and for the times eternally. But now it is the need of the hour because people have become much more distracted than ever. The consistency of a person, be it an adult or a child, to focus, to be present, to concentrate has reduced drastically. The cases of becoming lonely, the cases of becoming stressed and anxious and depressed has increased to another level.
I'm an optimist at heart. So while I know all of that, so what I want to understand is, how does mindfulness help? So suppose I am the parent and you're telling me that mindful parenting could help and all that. So could you share an instance, like, that in an otherwise case this, in a mindful case this, or something like that?
So I'll give you example of my parents or our parenting time. The thing that drove their thought process or their action was fear. What was anxiety, was comparison, was judgment, the fear of judgment. So all that drivers made them do what they did, forced their children to hard work, to compete, to run the race. The drivers were somewhere that needed to be checked. While in this case, if we are mindful parents, we will check our drivers. What is driving us for guiding our child in a certain direction? Is it a fear of the future? Is it the anxiety of my child being left behind?
True, it could be. It could be either of those things, what you mentioned. And the times that we grew up in were probably times of scarcity and, where the resources were relatively scarce. Not that everybody was poor, but the resources were scarce. Now you're living in the times of, say, abundance.
No, but not everybody is abundant.
Not everyone is. Of course, just the way not everybody was in scarcity back then. However, what I want to understand is that So suppose a child threw a tantrum, as you said earlier, people operated or parents operated from authority and fear.
Yes.
So if a child threw a tantrum, he was not allowed to throw a tantrum. He was not allowed to get something which was beyond, like, if you...
Not even ask a question.
Not even ask questions,
It
right?
it is said, it is done.
So now in a mindful parenting, what would happen? So what happens if there's a tantrum? What happens if there's a demand that you as an adult or as a parent wouldn't want to comply with?
So you have to give a lot of explanation, a lot of communication with logic. I'll give you an example of today morning. So every day morning is the morning because it is the time which tests your patience to the limit. Because in the night they did not sleep in time. In the morning they will not want to wake up, and it is the story of every household which has children. So my son, as usual, nightmare. I was constantly after him, sleep. Even but then they slept at their time. While waking, he's continuously crying, and there are days when I lose it. There are definitely days when I'm PMSing, but at other days when I'm aware, when I am conscious, I'm like, I told you in the night, and it is something that I have been telling you every day. And this is precisely the reason. See, this is why you have to sleep early, because right now what you want is a 30-minute more sleep. So I explained to him that, see, this 30 minutes that you want extra were available to you in the night. And that is precisely why every night I am after your life. It is not going to give me extra sleep or give me some comfort.
Essentially, you talk about it.
A long talk and a consistent talk for I don't know how many years. That was not the patience level of our time.
True.
When we were children. That was not the perseverance even our parents thought of. So this is something that comes with little bit of mindful practices, little bit of awareness that this is required for his mental and emotional growth. If I don't give him this, his mind is not ready to comprehend. He is not that kind of a child who will be pressurized and he will understand just because the parents said it so.
In terms of mindfulness, recently I'm reading this book called The Conscious Parent by Shefali Zibari.
Okay.
Very interesting book and a very different take on parenting than what you would have usually kind of understood, and at least for me it was very new. So what she spoke about was that when children have experienced extreme forms of authority, they either try to impose that authority on the next generation, on their children, or they end up being the victims of it and giving so much authority to their children in the name of freedom and saying that I didn't have this and now you can have all of it, that it takes the form of pampering, or it takes the form of being the provider and saying that tu kar le, whatever you like. So where does mindfulness fall on that spectrum?
See, what she is saying is very correct, unless checked by the parent himself or herself. Okay. So if the parent did not check that this is where I am becoming a victim, or I am becoming an authoritative figure just like my parent. So either case, he or she will pass it on to the next generation. Okay. So we have to break that pattern. We have to break that cycle. And how do you do that? By you yourself becoming aware of it. That you are going through certain degree of these problems, so to say, and you need to rectify. Playing a victim is very easy. And that is the most easiest way available to get care, pamper, empathy and whatnot. I have been in that state and I know it. That if I did not check it 6-7 years back, I would have ruined everything that I had. And that is precisely the time I understood, no, this is where I need to take a U-turn.
Okay.
I have lived my life as a borrowed identity, which I have written about in one of my blog posts. What is borrowed identity? Of my past. I am living like an imprint of my past, playing that record over and over and over again till the time
I choose to do something about that. True. So, yeah, parents, we all need to be mindful, at least in parts of where our behaviors are coming from.
Absolutely.
Somewhere or the other, you'll be able to figure out. And believe me, the trigger that child threw the glass and hence I was triggered is not the cause. There's something much deeper at work and play and all that. And probably if we just take the time out to figure that out, it would help us a little. So tell me about your children. Do they seek your approval? Should they seek parents' approval?
See, I don't think they should seek, but they must understand if the parent is asking them not to use mobile for this number of time, why is the parent saying so? So again, it comes back to communication and giving them logic and reasoning.
Okay.
So, but for a child to understand all that in that tiny age becomes difficult.
True.
So the child wants to see television, he or she
Endlessly.
And even if you keep explaining them, it will be difficult for them to understand because that is not their age. It is not an age appropriate information that they are processing. For that reason, there has to be rules.
Okay.
For that reason, there has to be certain lines that are drawn that okay, this is your screen time, and for that you need to take permission.
Okay.
So this is your chocolate
Quota.
For that you need to take permission. They understand, but they will understand as and when they grow. As a child of 5-year-old or 6 or 7 or 8, they are trying to understand how good is fruit for them or how good is pizza for them.
So you also practice mindfulness with children. You help them understand the concept of mindfulness. So what does it look like when it comes to children? So would you find children sitting in the Om Zen position and all that? So just wondering.
So this is a mix of different kind of activities that we do. We have mindful eyes, we have mindful listening, we have body scan, we have mindful walks, and we have lot of group games, we have lot of discussions.
And it helps the children become?
Everything leading towards emotional quotient. So hiking their emotional quotient is something that could be said as the end result. Mindfulness never defines itself as having benefits. Mindfulness is an experience.
Okay.
So
mindfulness is not something that will bring you happiness.
It is a byproduct.
Okay.
If you practice it, you will feel happy.
Okay.
So it is very, very experiential, and if we attach benefits to it, we are diluting the essence of it.
Okay.
So in order for us to understand what is mindfulness, it is a practice. Just like cleaning our teeth is a practice, eating healthy food is a practice, and that is a practice for the body. Practicing mindfulness is a practice for mind. It is a healthy food for your mind.
Okay. Interesting. So mindfulness is the exercise or the food for your mind. It is essentially something that will help you have better thoughts, be in better company. You wouldn't want to be with somebody who's sobbing and crying and all that, right? So probably mindfulness would just help you overcome
to choose
to become a little more responsible towards who you are and what you're passing on.
Absolutely.
Right? Could you tell us a little bit about who are the people that you look up to when it comes to mindful parenting or when it comes to parenting in general?
Other than mindfulness, I also practice a Buddhist philosophy.
Okay.
So the mentor that I follow, Dr. Daisaku Ikeda, he's a philosopher, he's a peace activist, environmentalist, author of thousands of books. And he is somebody who has written beautiful books on parenting, on how to live in a harmonious family, how to bring this unit together and grow as individuals who are contributing not only to the family but to their environment in large. So reading his books and definitely many other authors, listening to somebody like Sister Shivani or Sadhguru also at times definitely helps.
Okay.
But primarily Dr. Daisaku Ikeda is somebody whose books have really helped me all these years to be on that path.
Some instance or a thought or an incident that changed the way you were parenting. If you could tell us a little about that, like what made you shift gears? If it's something that you want to share.
It was a time when I personally was going through these changes. With that came the changes in my parenting. So I started to change my whole perspective towards life, how I deal things when I was around 30, which was 7-8 years back, and that is precisely when my daughter was 2.5-3 years old. Till then, I was in a very different mindset, although I was very clear of what not to do.
Okay.
But still, there were times where I was pulled down more often than I am today.
Okay. And an interesting note that you make, you become a better parent or you become mindful only when you are individually getting there. So if we look at becoming a better parent without becoming a better individual, without becoming a better self, I don't think that's the way out.
Absolutely.
I don't think that
there has to be self-transformation.
So what is the impact that the kids have had on you as a couple? So you said it's love marriage, which means you've known each other for a longer time than before.
Yeah, little more.
So
before them, it was all us. Okay. After them, it is all them. So everything revolves around them. From morning till night, from vacation to designing the dinner or going for a restaurant, everything is around them. Okay. Because they have become that integral part, and we have done that consciously, joyfully.
That's a choice that you made.
That is a choice that we have made. So from any city that you name in India or across, it is never been that we have traveled without them. It is primarily because we could not, as parents, leave them. So if it is Paris or New York or any other city, we have never been to the pub hopping or things like that, but we have been to all the parks and the Disneys and the museums. So if you ask what have you seen there, I have seen Central Park, I have seen Disney.
So I share a different opinion on that, but never mind. Today you are the guest, so we'll hear you.
So it was more or less, we did not even, so to say, we did not have much choice also leaving them behind. And so that could also be one of the reasons.
As you said, choice is something that we can always practice. But coming back to this, is there something that worries you as a parent, and a thought or an idea or something that kind of, there's something?
The future not really worries me, because again, worry comes when we are lingering in the future.
Or the past.
So mindfulness is being present in the moment.
Okay.
So snapping back and coming back to the moment helps definitely. Okay. But the way the climate is changing, or the way the world is by large, the negativity, the mindset, the kind of people that if I look around just while I'm driving and just looking around at different faces, and I observe, and I somehow get energies of those people, and I understand the pain, the anxiety, the stress level is increasing. No doubt the positivity is also increasing. It is also craving its way, or it is finding its path. But these things are also at their highest level now. So where am I leaving my children is something that definitely brings me to thinking. Yes.
Interesting. What is the relevance of schools in today's day and age? Like, according to you, how do you see them?
Schools are definitely one of the core, they play the core role in upbringing any child, for that matter. So the structured education that they provide and the social skills that they provide is unmatchable.
Okay.
But at this time and age, I very strongly believe that there are 3 skills that are going to dominate this world in 21st century, one of which is social emotional learning, and that is where schools have not yet stepped in.
Okay.
The other 2, the technological or the educational skills, are being provided. What about the social emotional learning?
They are taken as a byproduct.
Maybe that
in most schools.
Yes.
We try and work on it, but essentially
that is not
assumed as a byproduct or as a side.
Yes, it is like a co-curriculum activity, may or may not be there, but this is something where we have to understand that EQ is the basis of IQ. Your IQ is built upon your EQ. If you do not cater it now, time will be, then a very intelligent child may lose out on the best possible opportunities only because he or she was not very strong emotionally.
True, emotional resilience. It is
Emotional
depleting
stability, emotional
emotions.
balance, peer pressure, everything. So recently I read that a child with very high EQ generally doesn't undergo with peer pressure because they are so content with what they know. And that's so important, and it boils down to this emotional quotient as well, because they are not competing with anybody else but themselves.
Themselves. So yeah, while the schools are here, technically they are here for the academics and all that. Until and unless we make our children emotionally resilient and emotionally strong, the academics are not really going to help them in the future. Anything else that you would want to share before I begin with my rapid fire round?
Oh, is it?
So yeah.
I think mindfulness is not a very difficult thing to practice, and it is not something that you really need to learn. It is there inside you. It is just like breathing. You're anywhere, wherever. You can be in this moment just by focusing on your breathing. One simple thing, bring your focus back on your breathing, even for 1 minute, for few seconds,
And it will be back.
and it will be back.
Great, nice to know that. And now, some questions.
Yes.
They're simple. Don't worry. I'm no Karan Johar, so that's
Thank God.
Vacation with kids.
Hectic and playful.
Fears kids have.
Presently, not being able to perform well enough.
Okay. Sharing pics of family on social media.
I don't prefer.
Not a good idea. Screen time by adults versus screen time by kids.
Balance has to be there, so I have to lead by example.
Mainstream schooling and its weight.
Mainstream schooling is trying to do its best in this time and era, definitely. Whatever.
A film or play that you enjoy with the kids, or you enjoyed the most with your kids.
Inside Out is a movie with kids.
With kids that. A family tradition that you have.
Sundays are special for us. So from morning till night we are together, either eating together or playing together.
So thank you so much for coming over. It was a pleasure to have you. And
so
I hope this inspires a few more people who can kind of take this forward and understand that life is much more and beyond what is just visible. And that at the end of the day, you got to look inside to get the answers
That's
for the outside.
the way. That's the way. And
Right.
thank you so much for inviting.